All right, class, welcome back to Algebra 1. Today is Thursday, April the 16th, 2020. Our proverb for the day is found in chapter 8, verse 32. Now then, my sons, listen to me. Blessed are those who keep my ways, which are the Lord's ways. We are studying section 9.6 today. We are going to solve the quadratic equation by the quadratic formula. So we have used T-charts, we have used the intercepts method, we have used square roots method. Today we're going to use the quadratic formula method. You are required to do it that way for each and every problem, so please plug in all the values and show multiple steps so I can see that you know how to actually solve the formula. All right. Today we're looking for solutions or zeros to a quadratic equation. The quadratic equation must always be set equal to 0. This is the quadratic term. It's an x to the second power, or a variable to the second power. This is the linear term, x to the first power. This is the constant. So the values that we're looking for are b, a, c, and then a again to plug into this formula. So a is the coefficient of the quadratic term. B is the coefficient to the linear term, and C is the constant. So it will help to put it in descending order. The formula is found on page 613 of your text. I do have it, a song for you. I am not going to sing, but I will play it for you. And this is to the tune Pop Goes the Weasel.
X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that. Now let's see if we can use that formula to solve. I've got four examples for you guys. The first two are guided practice number 5. Guided practice number 5. It reads x squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. So we need to identify the coefficients. We need to identify the constant. So I'm going to rewrite it. There's an understood 1 in front of the x squared. There's an understood 1 in front of the x. So we've got 1x squared plus 1x. The constant, see this one in a different color. The constant is a negative 6. So the sign does go with it, equals 0. So now let's see if we can plug it into our formula and come up with what x is going to be. The plus or minus in front of the square root is going to give us our two values. So if we can color code this thing, I've got a negative b. Well, b is 1, so I need to put a negative 1. Then it's plus or minus the square root of b squared. I would put it in parentheses, so that is a 1 squared minus, it is always 4, so that is a constant, we'll leave it in black, times a, which is green, times c, which is red, and c is a negative 6, so I'm going to put it in its own set of parentheses, all over 2 times, and a, in this case, is 1, and lots of times it will be 1, okay? All right, so now we need to go through and see if we can do the arithmetic. X is going to be equal to a negative 1 plus or minus the square root of. Now I would work what's in the radical first. 1 squared is 1. If this comes out negative under the radical, it is an imaginary 0. So all of them you work today should be positive. Negative times negative is going to result in a sum. 4 times 1 times 6 is 24, all over 2. So I get x equals negative 1 plus or minus, that's where the 2 are going to come in, the square root of 25 all over 2, or 2 times a. That gives us a negative 1 plus or minus, and the square root of 25 is 5, all over 2. This is exact, but go ahead and separate it out and see if you can come up with 2 integers. So it should be negative 1 plus 5 over 2 and a negative 1 minus 5 over 2. That gives us 4 over 2. That gives us negative 6 over 2, or 2 comma negative 3. These are the 2 zeros or solutions to our quadratic equation x squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. Plug them in real fast and see if they work. 2 squared is 4, plus 2 more is 6. 6 minus 6 is equal to 0. Then plug in the negative 3. Negative 3, quantity squared is 9. 9 minus 3 is 6, and 6 minus 6 is 0. So both of those values work. I'm excited to report. All right. I'm not going to change colors on this next one. Just going to keep them all black. This reads x squared minus the quantity 9, if you will, equals 0. There is not a linear term. This could actually be solved by the square roots method by adding 9 to both sides and taking the square root of both sides. But I think for us, let's go ahead and stick with the quadratic formula. Let's put in a value for b. So we're going to have x squared plus 0x minus 9 equals 0. Quadratic, linear, constant equals 0. Formula says negative b, so that's a minus 0 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's 0 squared, minus, and then 4 times a is 1 times c is a negative 9, okay, all over 2 times a, which is 1. So this, and hopefully it's not going to be as complicated. Minus a negative is going to give us positive. 4 times 1 times 9 is 36. And it's a plus or minus all over 2. So that is a plus or minus 6 over 2. So I believe we've got plus or minus 6. So what do we got? 3 and negative 3. And if we'd solved it by the square roots method, taking the 9 to the other side, then taking the square root of both sides, we would have noticed plus and or minus 3. All right, I'm going to stop the video.